Oregon takes care of Oregon State, and the stage is finally set.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Shout out to my everydayers. Thank you all for being a bit patient. Full reaction show coming from Oregon State's 41-7 beatdown of Oregon State, in which, again, they played, fine. They did not perfect all the time, but mostly played well. You look up, and it's a no-sweat win come the fourth quarter. Brock Thomas got into the game. That's usually a good sign that things went well. So talk about that and some early thoughts on Penn State. I might put out more content this week going into Penn State than I ever have before. I'm just preparing you for all of that. So I'm as excited as you are. I really am. This episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. So 41-7, the final, and it was definitely uncomfortable for a quarter. I want to commend Oregon State. I'm not being facetious when I say it's probably the best game that they played all year. It really was. Now, it only lasted for a quarter because Oregon is just an infinitely more talented team, and they found their RB1 in James Ferguson Reynolds, the punter. That was epic. It was truly epic. Oregon did not play a perfect game by any stretch for the second straight week. And, they came out of the gates in the first two games, guns blazing, right? The Montana State game, believe my exact words on the show, were that couldn't have gone any better. And I probably in some form or fashion said those exact same words in my reaction show to the Oklahoma State game. Those two matchups could not have seen Oregon play any better brand of football. And so they come out here against Oregon State, and depending on where you got the line at, Oregon may or may not have covered. And I bring that up because I think that's a legitimate point that some people look to. Oh my gosh, they didn't win by this or that, the other. Oregon won the game 41-7. The starters have not played in the fourth quarter in an entire quarter this year. I think they've had a couple of snaps here and there, but Dante Moore has not been the last quarterback in the game so far this season. Oregon's 4 scores so far this year, which I'll expected to be big, and they all were 59-13, 69-3, 34-14, and 41-7. If I told you that, or if you told me that before the season began, I wonder what some of you would have said. I would have said, oh, okay, good. The offense is further along than I thought it would be because they look like they are gelling and doing a lot of things well. It's not perfect all of the time. And I think particularly on Twitter, Oregon fans, any fan base, frankly, it's easy to get caught up in a couple of particular moments. Because you see one drive that doesn't go well, or you see one defensive sequence that wasn't good. Oregon State got one drive. That's usually how these games go. That's usually what it looks like. When you're playing, I know Oregon State has been woefully bad this year. 100%. They're still a group of 5 team. And when you watch group of 5, or now it's group of 6, I suppose, with the Pac-12 in there, RIP. And you watch them play against high-level teams like Oregon in the Big Ten or Georgia, whoever, there's usually one drive. There's one drive where the offense stays on the field. And when you come in with a game plan, like what Northwestern had last week, and I said Oregon State would try to do again, and they did, which was chew the clock, run the ball, and limit Oregon's possessions, they accomplished that for a little while. And then you look up, and at one point in both of those games, Oregon holds a 34-point lead. So I don't really have very much to complain about in this game. After the Northwestern game, there were questions about Oregon's run defense. If you had serious questions after that one particular game, because remember, Oklahoma State did not run the ball incredibly well, and Montana State, they didn't run the ball incredibly well, but Northwestern had one, maybe 2 drives where they went up and down the field. They didn't actually score, of course, but they went up and down the field. And I said, yeah, I'm not as worried about it. I'm looking more at Oregon's rushing offense as the bigger point of concern after the Northwestern game. And then I said, well, if if they struggle mightily against Oregon State, then yeah, that'd be a concern. Oregon State had one drive. And Oregon as a whole was sluggish in the early going. They were at home. Nope, they shouldn't have been. It's 2 straight weeks they haven't gotten off to a strong enough start. Because you know what it felt like? It felt like watching Oregon play Oregon State. Like they had moments where they were focused and they were dialed, like at the end of the half, where they get the stop and they march right down the field and score with 20 seconds or whatever it was. If they'd gotten the ball somehow again with 15 seconds, I felt like they could have scored. Okay, those were the moments where you saw Oregon playing at its best. The entire game, and honestly one of my biggest takeaways from that was they were looking ahead to Penn State. Dan Lanning kind of confirmed that after the game when he gave one of the most baller quotes. Dan is awesome, man. He is a fun guy to have be the head coach of your team. And I know many of you feel that way. I'm sure most of you feel that way. How could you not? He's awesome. So anyway, coming into this matchup, I was going to watch because of the, 2 drives Northwestern had and the ground success they had is like, okay, if Oregon State can go up and down the field, yeah, I'm going to be worried going into Penn State. Oregon State finished this game with 67 rushing yards. Okay, they had 1 drive. As a team, they averaged just over 2.5 yards a carry. That was it. It was 1 drive. They're going to have that. And you know what? For all the discussion out there, which I understand, about Tosh Lupoi and whether or not he's really good enough in-game, haven't you seen the adjustments? When Northwestern had that drive, I'll call it drive and a half early on, and Oregon State had the 1 drive, what happened after that? Nothing. Kind of looks like the proper in-game adjustments were made. So I come out of this game feeling the same about Oregon's defense as I did, which is, yeah, I feel better about the pass defense than the run defense like last year. But to say that I have this flagged as, oh my gosh, Penn State's going to go for 300 on the ground, that'll be up to Penn State. That'll 100% be up to how the Nittany Lion, it'll come down to the trench play. That's what it'll ultimately come down to. Because I can't look at what Oregon's done through the first 4 games and say, yeah, they've shown these massive cracks. Like, no, we're nitpicking. Because we've all known in the back of our mind, not even the back of our minds, in the front of our minds. Look, if you go look at, and I mean, maybe AI could do this breakdown. The amount that I talked about this Oregon State game in the lead up to the actual game compared to other matchups, to me, felt incredibly small because we all understand what's happening here. You realize the football season's a third of the way over? It doesn't feel that way because it feels like for Oregon it's barely begun because it kind of has. And it begins this week against Penn State. That's the first real game, the first real test. Oklahoma State lost to Tulsa. They're so bad. So unbelievably bad. Montana State's an FCS. Northwestern, probably the toughest game Oregon played. I thought it would be Oregon State, then Northwestern, then Oklahoma State, then Montana State. And it was probably Northwestern, I guess. But none of these were actually challenging. And we all knew that that's how it should play out because the talent Oregon's going to put on the field. And so I think that the way the team has played has reflected that exact thing. That they know as well. If you and I can look at this team and understand, yeah, the first 4 games aren't going to be a challenge. They're not going to be a threat. Don't you think the coaching staff knows that? That's watching film on everybody every week, that knows even more about Oregon's opponents than I do? Like, that's what the team looked like. They looked like they were looking ahead to Penn State. And then Dan Lanning he was asked about it after the game. When do you flip the switch and go to Penn State? And he said, the switch has already been flipped. Dude. I mean, you got to watch it. You can't just hear the quote or hear the words. You got to go look at his face. I don't think they were preparing for Oregon State this week. I think they were preparing for Penn State. I think they've been doing that for a couple weeks. And it's all going to the build up to this game is going to be as big, maybe even bigger somehow, than Ohio State at Austin last year. It's game day. It's a whiteout. Oregon's got some mummy cleats that they released. You might get a lot of my everydayers out there. You might get a lot of shows from me this week. You're going to hear from Zach Sako, Locked On Penn State, a lot. We're going to do at least 2 crossovers, probably 3 this week. There's that much to talk about. It's going to be great. It's going to be really, really great. And so in no way do I don't have a big sway in my feeling about this Oregon team after the Oregon State game, because it's pretty close to what I expected. The offense came up empty in the red zone because Kyler Casper is just cursed down there. That's just the way that it is. We've got enough data points now to where we can say that. And that was the difference between my score prediction being off by literally 3 points. Like this game looked mostly how I expected. Did I want a better start? Yeah, that would have been great. But now that I've had time to think about it, am I that worried going into Penn State? No, because it comes down to what's on the line in the game. And yeah, it's a rivalry game and it's Oregon State, but that program is in a horrible place right now. And guess what? I didn't enjoy that game as much as I used to. Just the way that it is, unfortunately. So drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all of that good stuff. I've got a lot of mailbag questions to get to. I might do an entire mailbag bonus show. I have a lot of content to get to this week and over in Locked On College Football as well. But on the Oregon State game, some of my favorite moments. One in particular, I just can't get enough of. All right, we've got our second segment sip. We're fresh and ready to go. I went to bed at 4 a.m., but I'm surprisingly vibrant today. So my favorite moment of the game, honestly, was early on because it confirmed a couple of things. Number one, health. And number two, he's here and ready to be one of the best at his position in all of college football. Dakorien Moore's touchdown was utterly spectacular. And before the season, my everydayers might remember, I predicted Dakorien Moore to lead Oregon in receiving yards by the time the 12-game regular season came to a close, or the season in general. I guess I didn't limit it to the 12 games. But Dakorien Moore looks like a freaking superstar in every sense of the term. And that first touchdown catch is what we were looking at, because not everybody that's a highly rated recruit lives up to the hype in his entire career, let alone right away. And because Oregon has recruited the position so well, I mean, Jeremiah McLaughlin got his first touchdown. Sadiq had 4 catches for 60 yards. Gary Bryant had a good game with a long touchdown. Benson's a stud. Because they have so much talent on the perimeter, his numbers are not gaudy. They're not blowing you away so far. I actually don't think Dakorien has had more than 70 yards receiving in a game. And let me pull up his game log here real quick. He hasn't even hit 70 yards receiving yet, and we know how impactful and special he is. That touchdown that he had on the back shoulder, I don't know the last Oregon receiver that did that consistently. That's not something you even did a whole heck of a lot with Troy Franklin or Tez Johnson. You maybe saw it from time to time. You know, Tez had that one against Washington State in 2023, but that wasn't as spectacular as this one. I mean, the way that his ball skills are incredible, the hands are phenomenal, and he and Dante Moore just seem to get more and more in sync and developing that chemistry as every week goes on. Like that's already a special connection, and I still think they're just scratching the surface of the potential. Dakorien's had a really good start to the year, but he is fully capable of having that breakout game. If it comes against Penn State, I'm going to lose my mind on this show, because it is by far the best defense Oregon has gone up against so far this year. It's not particularly close. So he's got a breakout game in him of 8 catches, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That game is out there. He might just need to play a full 4 quarters first. Hasn't had the chance to do that yet. So that play, when he comes back through, I believe it was against former Oregon defensive back Jalil Tucker as well, who's in a good position. But this is one of the reasons we are so excited to get Dakorien Moore, is for plays like that, where it doesn't actually matter if you are defending the play well. He's going to make it anyway. And I've watched a lot of other teams, including that team up north in Seattle, have guys that make these sorts of plays, and Oregon hasn't always over the years. And we were watching it happen a lot. Dante Moore, I'll talk more about Dante Moore probably in the third segment on this show. But that particular play, and then they hit another back shoulder later on, I looked at that and said, man, I don't know what Tucker's supposed to do. And then the answer is there's nothing you can really do. He just makes the play. He is just different. And so that moment, I was giddy with excitement watching that play. I really was, because I went, man, this is game 4, and he's got it figured out. He is an absolute dude. He had my guy Zach Seiko tweeting about him during the game, saying, man, or after the game, Dakorien Moore against AJ Harris going to be a premier matchup. And yeah, it is. It is. It's going to be a phenomenal test. So that was legitimately one of my favorite moments of the game. Jaden Lamar's hurdle is definitely up there. I had someone send me a question or a comment saying, or asking if Oregon is hurdle U. You know, Iowa's tight end U, Ohio State's wide receiver U, LSU or Washington's DB U. Oregon might be hurdle U. I mean, this is truly, you don't just have one guy doing it. We've seen Sadiq do it. We've seen Dakorien do it. Now Jaden Lamar has done it. I feel like I'm missing one out there. It was awesome. It was just one of those moments like, oh, man. And I thought Jaden Lamar had a nice game. I did. I didn't think it was always great, but you look up and, you know, it doesn't look as great as some of the other backs we've seen over the years. Like, it looks kind of different, but at the end of the day, production is what matters, and Jaden Lamar's productive. He had 12 carries for 70 yards. He also caught 2 passes for 22 yards. Like, he's productive. That's clear and obvious. Do I want Noah Whittington back? I do, because I think he's better. You know, there was one play in particular that the broadcast highlighted where, you know, Lamar could have bounced to the outside, and maybe De'Aaron Hill or Noah Whittington see that lane, bounce it out, and pick up, you know, 15, 20 yards, or maybe even have a touchdown, depending on if he can make the safety miss, whereas he picked up like 6 or 7 yards. But I think that for Oregon's running backs, I feel good about him. It's hard to not. It's really hard to not. So Jay Lamar with the hurdle, that was certainly an awesome moment. I think Dante Moore's best throw of the day came to Malik Benson. Dante had another good game, by the way. He's making this look so easy, so incredibly easy. But that throw to Malik Benson, kind of like what I was talking about with the Dakorien back shoulder touchdown. And I'm referring to the one, not the out route that he puts on the money, which was just absolute seed, but the back shoulder throw where, again, DB is in perfect position and Malik Benson's just better. And he just high points the ball perfectly. It's a well-thrown ball. It was a long throw. That was a big-time NFL type of throw. And seeing those moments not just pop up every now and then, but seeing them arise consistently has been a really fun thing to watch, and I think has been kind of an evolving part of this Oregon offense with Dante Moore in this receiving corps that wasn't always there a season ago. And somehow they're doing, they're making those sorts of plays that they haven't really, as a program, done in the past consistently, and they don't even have Evan Stewart, who might play this year, by the way. He keeps getting listed on the injury report as out, which implies, I believe, that one day he could move into the questionable designation. So, yeah, that was great. And then it wasn't one particular play, but Bryce Betcher had 9 tackles in the first half and 10 total in his final Civil War. That was really awesome. I just watching him play, and there was a great story by a sideline reporter in the game about how he had his Zen moment, just went and sat in a chair in the stadium and just took it all in, and because he knew it was his last one. And it was his last rivalry game at Autzen because the Husky game is in Seattle this year. So I loved watching that happen as well. Like, Oregon kid, there's something so old school about Bryce Betcher. Pretty sure he was a 0-star recruit for on the football side, which once we get to playing Washington later this year is absolutely going to come up in my conversation with Roman Tomashov. He's a 3-star recruit. He was coming out of high school, out of South Eugene. He was, according to the 24/7 composite, 2,819th overall player. He wasn't even top 15 in the state of Oregon. Those are the sorts of guys that that feel old school college football. You know, Oregon's the place I want to be. I'm not supposed to be there. I'm not a big-time recruit, but you know what? It's the place I want to go. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to take my shot, and he's just had an awesome career. Awesome career. So he played great, and I just loved watching him, you know, play a really inspired brand of football that led the defense, by the way, to hold Oregon State to, I think it was 147 total yards. They had 80 passing yards, 67 rushing yards on less than 3 per carry. And they fumbled as well. Yeah, 147 total yards. Oregon outgained them 585 to 147. Didn't play their best game, though. And by the way, I'm not even joking. They really didn't. Their best game is Oklahoma State. That's the best, most complete performance they've put out so far this year. And they didn't do that. And they won the game 41-7. So those are some of my favorite moments. Drop yours in the YouTube comments below or hit me up on Twitter. Curious what you all have to say. All right. Dante Moore is making this look really easy. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season's here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So I started 2-0 with my score predictions against the spread, according to FanDuel. I am 0 for my last 2. Will I be correct again? You're all going to probably hope. We'll see. I haven't made my official prediction yet. I've talked about it a lot. The line is down to Oregon plus 3.5. Penn State's still favored, but the betting market has seen what Oregon's done this year, what Penn State has done this year, and says, I like Oregon more so far. You think the Ducks are winning the game outright? Well, then plus 3.5 points should be free money in your view. So whatever you want, NFL, college football, FanDuel's got it all. If you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Check them out at FanDuel.com. This episode also brought to you by our friends at Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that really make a neighborhood feel like home. It could be a local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives, and a lot of them run on Square to make financial transactions easier. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot, whatever that may be. You'll be happy that you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. 21-31, 305 yards, 4 touchdowns, 81.4 QBR. Yeah. What could Dante be doing? Actually, I have one thing. But aside from that one thing, which I will get to, what could Dante be doing to be more impressive? Like, through the first 4 games, is this about as good as you could hope? I kind of think it is. Because the way that he hasn't played perfect, guess what? No quarterback is ever going to play perfect football. We all love Dylan Gabriel, right? He had an awesome season, Heisman finalist. He had more red zone interceptions than anybody in the country. No one's ever going to play perfect. Dante Moore is currently completing just under 75% of his passes, 11 touchdowns to 1 wind-aided interception. He just looks so comfortable, decisive, and everything that was questioned about him coming into the year. Do we know everything before Penn State? No. This is his biggest test by far. But through the games that we have been able to watch, how much better could you realistically feel about this guy? The answer is not much. Now, going into this game against Penn State, those little nitpicky things can quite literally be the difference between winning or losing. For example, he missed 2 throws in this game that if it arises against Penn State, you can't miss, or you will look back and probably be able to say that was the difference in the game, or that was a major turning point that led to Oregon losing. And that was on a couple of deep balls. And by the way, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the staff noticed it too, since we all saw it. But he had Malik Benson wide open in the first half, couldn't even put it on his hands. Dakorien Moore, who has just lived up to the billing, as I mentioned, is such a crazy good route runner. He beats his corner off the line of scrimmage on a streak route, and Dante Moore put that ball way too low. I mean, held down the B button for way too long. You got to tap that thing and put some arc on it. Now, it's not as if we haven't seen Dante Moore make those throws. I don't think this is a major concern. It's just something to note. And it is something that he did wrong on Saturday twice, that against Penn State, you're not going to have as many opportunities. I love Oregon's receiving core. As I have mentioned, they are not going to have as many wide open shots against Penn State as they did against the Beavs. So when those opportunities are there, you have to take advantage. One example that comes to mind, injuries, man, just injuries. Vernon Adams had a broken finger against Michigan State in 2015 with those gorgeous white helmets that sparkled. They had the Fighting Ducks logo on the side. I love those unis. White, by the way, I've waited too long to opine on the Nike uniforms. Holy smokes, man. Woo! The helmet's insanely good. I mean, phenomenally awesome. Would I have loved to touch a green? Yeah, but I understand why it wasn't there, because it's an homage to Nike, but holy smokes, they look so good. So good. White helmets are always the right answer. Now, I hope we get that this week. If Oregon goes all white in the whiteout, I might explode. I might not be able to handle it. I might explode. But it'd be great. It would be of overbearing joy. Anyway, Vernon Adams has a broken finger in that game, or else he is, to this day, probably the best deep ball thrower at quarterback that Oregon has had in my lifetime. That is not hyperbole at all. Like, Mariota's deep ball was not as good. Bo Nix's was really good at times. I'll take Vernon Adams, just on the deep ball. Just on the deep ball. If he doesn't have a broken finger, I don't think he misses Byron Marshall, who was really open. And if he hits him there, Oregon wins the game. Most likely. So that's what I'm talking about. This feels like the sort of game that's going to come down to one play or one moment. And Dante Moore has to make that adjustment. When you've got two, could Dakorien have caught that ball? Yes. He was not expecting on that much of a line, because he knows, and I'm sure Dante knows, you cannot give that ball that much of a line drive. You have to give your receiver a chance. The Benson one was worse because he was more open and you didn't give him an opportunity, but that is the one thing that Dante Moore has to clean up. But that is it. That is absolutely it. His pocket presence, his mobility, his decision making, not just in the passing game, but when to run and when to throw. You know, we've seen the mobility. It's not a primary feature, but he has it if he needs it. That could be big against Penn State. I think that Dante Moore has done everything he could possibly do against this caliber of opponents to give you confidence going into Penn State. Because everything that was questioned about him going back to his time at UCLA, I haven't seen any of it. The worst throw he made was killed by the wind. Yep, got to make that adjustment, no doubt. We're not playing on Lake Michigan this Saturday in Happy Valley. So there are going to be other factors in play that he has to deal with for the first time. Serious crowd noise. A real defense. One of the best defensive coordinators in the country. He's going to have to deal with those things. He's probably going to get hit more this week than he has all season long. Combined. He's been sacked once. And that was this past week against Oregon State. Ball security, bouncing back after a negative play, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, first major test. But through the first 4 games, calm, cool, collected, arm talent is crazy. I knew how good it was. I'd seen him throw in person before he became a college football player. And I knew how special that arm talent was, how precise his ball placement was. And somehow, it is next level beyond what I even expected. So I love what I'm seeing from him. Absolutely love it. Making the right reads, taking downfield shots. He's making all sorts of throws. He is further along than I expected him to be. This is kind of where I thought he'd be second half of the season, but he needs a third of the season to get there. Now we'll see what he's really got against Penn State. We'll see if those old demons spring back up or if he's truly fully past it. We'll know for sure. We have a good idea. We don't have a full idea going into this game against Penn State. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Tomorrow's episode is going to be a crossover with Seiko. Probably going to do another one during the week and then a prediction show. There's going to be a lot of content flowing on this particular channel. So keep tuning in. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.